everyone. If you can hear us, it's good to see you. Hi, Anna. It's good to see you. Oh, she's not off mute yet. Stinker. Well, hello. Hi, Natasha. Hi, Michael. Hi, Mark. James.
Lassendorf.
Hi, Mandy.
Hi.
Hey, Mandy.
Hi, Natasha. Where are you at these days?
I just got back stateside.
Aha. How was your trip?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, more than I could ask for. So it was super good. Great conversations and government and all of their different divisions of agriculture. Super excited about hemp. So more to come.
Awesome. I'm excited to hear about it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, this will be a fairly small group. We had I almost said a couple dozen people register and sign up, but it looks like it's going to be a fairly small group. So I really want to encourage this to be a conversation. If you guys have questions or if you want to, ask something specific, don't hesitate to chime in. We're going to get a lot further. I was just saying to Daniela, we were looking at some data that GHA has pulled together. And it's amazing what I don't know. And so again, this goes back, you guys, please, feel free to ask questions. There's a lot that Daniela knows that I don't know or don't know to ask. And so, yeah, I really encourage this to be a good discussion. Anna, are you being called out to turn on your camera and say hi? Stinker. You're on mute. That's awesome.
I think that's what she's trying to do to me. I'm not kidding.
Did I not mute myself when I called her? I thought I had to. Anna, I'm sorry to put you in that spot.
That's okay. If you want to see my weirdo face, that's cool. My fluffy hair.
It's great. Well, I'll just give it a couple more minutes while we let people log in. I want to say thank you again very much for Daniela for being on. Dr. Varga. Is that what you go by?
So, okay, that's funny. So Vergara. Daniela is fine, but Vergara, so verga in Spanish is a very bad word for dick.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you
when I was a kid, and everyone in my family, of course, they would say, verga, whatever. So yeah, so when you say Dr. Verga, it's like
That's hilarious.
I learned fanny pack, in another country actually means the lady parts. And so same thing. It's like when you're wearing your fanny pack, it's not necessarily. Yeah.
I grew up and when I moved to the United States, that was in the height of the 80s, 90s, like fanny pack craze. I used to burst out laughing every single time somebody said fanny pack. Like I fell on my fanny or like whatever.
Yeah.
Funniest thing to me.
Yeah.
Well,
so funny.
We drive around with Roto-Rooter on our vehicles here, right? Because that's a business, but in Australia, it means something completely different.
Yeah. So I apologize. It's terrible. So for those of you that just logged in, I want to say thank you very much for joining. I'm excited about the conversation. I really want to open this up for a discussion and a conversation, not just me asking questions. I think where we get the most benefit is you guys are diving into things and you guys know this a lot better than I do, or some of these topics better than I do. And so I encourage you guys, as guests to, ask questions and get involved in the conversation. Of course, being respectful that, Daniela is definitely our guest and here to present and kind of share what she's got going on. But I do want this to be an open discussion. And so I also want you guys to take advantage of time to connect with each other out, offline. If we'll share contact information, or if you guys would like to share your contact information, please drop it into the chat. But this is your opportunity to get to know other people in the industry, what they're doing, then take the discussion offline and develop your network and business. And so I want to encourage that. This is not I did not start this, or the reason we're doing this is not for me to get to know everybody and, exclusively, but definitely to help drive the conversation. And then also, we would love your support through GHA and Friends of Hemp. Friends of Hemp is GHA's nonprofit organization. So we're doing our fiber variety trials there, as well as a marketing campaign. And at the end of this month, we're entered into the Good Giving Challenge, where we get $1 for dollar, or sometimes $2 or $3 to the dollars to the $1 on a match. And so we've participated for the last couple of years, and we're really looking to hit our goal of $20,000 through matching funds. And so we would love, your support. I'll share the link here today, but that goes active and live the week of the week of the Good Giving Challenge, is after Thanksgiving, November 29th through December 5th or 6th. And so I'll share the link, but watch out for our social media page. Helps us a ton. It doubles or triples our dollars for research and education, and allows us to keep doing things like this. So without further ado, I'd love to turn it over. Would you like to introduce yourself and kind of highlight what you're doing? Oh, one more thing. This helps a lot. For those of you that don't use Zoom, up in your upper right-hand corner, you can drag your screen. So you can, either put mine up at the top or change view to speaker view. But just so you guys know, you can kind of move your screens around. And then a reminder that this is being recorded. None of the screens, when you have your camera turned off, are on the screen and will be recorded. But just heads up if that's something, that once you put your camera back on screen, your face will show up on the recording. And so I just want to give everybody a heads up for that. Other than that, it's all you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I am Dr. Daniela Vergara. I am an evolutionary biologist by training, and I started doing cannabis genomics back in 2013 when I moved to Colorado in the University of Colorado in Boulder. I started as a postdoc, then I was a research associate when I started working for the private industry for the testing facility Steep Hill. I did data analysis for Steep Hill for 2.5-ish years. And then then the Steep Hill R&D team was purchased by Front Range Biosciences. So I continued my work at Front Range Biosciences until they kind of ran out of some money. So I had to find a new job. And that was back in 2021. So I moved to New York State in 2021. Hi, Marian.
I was just going to say that. I was going to write her a note.
Yeah, because you can write notes. I cannot write notes. I think Emmanuel Bernal is here too. Emmanuel Ber. So hi, Emmanuel.
Yeah, please say hello. I feel bad. I put Anna on the spot and called her out, but yes,
yeah,
it's so great to see you both. Yay!
Yeah, it's great
you
to see
too.
You. So I moved to upstate New York, to the Geneva campus from Cornell University. In September 2021, I started as an emerging crop specialist, which at the beginning I thought that it was kind of a euphemism to not say cannabis. But then actually, if there's an emerging crop that arises, they want me to work with it. So let's see what happens right now. It's cannabis, the emerging crop, not only here in the US or in upstate New York, but in the world. For both marijuana, either recreationally or medically, but also for hemp, for grain, or for fiber, and for the gazillion million things that you can do with hemp. So I am working for Cornell Cooperative Extension with farmers and growers and helping the industry thrive, and doing outreach and education in both Spanish and English to New York State, which, by the way, includes New York City, although New York City is kind of its own little place in the world that doesn't belong to anyone or belongs to everyone, but it's part of New York State. And I also still have a lecturer and a researcher position at CU Boulder. And I do some research there, and I co-teach a class with Anna, actually. And then I also run a non-for-profit organization where Anna is also one of the board members. We developed the course that we teach at CU Boulder. We develop it through AGF, which is the Agricultural Genomics Foundation, which aims on bringing cannabis science. Cannabis, I refer to marijuana and hemp because both hemp and marijuana are cannabis. So cannabis science to a broad public. And I am also a consultant. So I do consultancy here and there and everywhere. So yeah, that is me.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about some of the work that you've done in cannabis research and some of, what you've done, and then really where you're moving in New York. What does the market look like, and where have you maybe shifted in, study or advice, seen market change? Yeah, I'm kind of interested in the move.
Yeah. So what have I done in cannabis research? So back in 2014, I think that was my first paper. The first paper that I published in cannabis was the assembly. So assembly is when you put together, like the putting together of the chloroplast genome, right? The chloroplast and the mitochondria, actually. These are two organs in the plant that are extremely important. Animals also have mitochondria, but plants have chloroplast. We do not have chloroplast, and the chloroplast is responsible for photosynthesizing, right? So for turning light into food. And so I was part of a group that assembled the chloroplast. So that was my first paper, and then came the mitochondria. Then I started doing genomic analyses on, for example, relationship between different varieties that we found, varieties including hemp and marijuana. What are their relationships, and looking at who is closely related to who, kind of like, okay, what do we have here? How much variation, how much diversity is there in the genome? And then I started working with Steve Hill, and they basically, back, I think it was about 2015, that they threw a data set on me. Reggie Gaudino, who I absolutely love and miss every single day of my life, he threw a data set like, hey, analyze this data. And so I started analyzing chemotypic data for them. So I started analyzing data for Steve Hill, and then I published several papers with the data sets that Steve Hill gave me. And then one of them actually was the comparison between chemotypes between a Steve Hill data and the cannabis produced by the federal government, NIDA, which is not good. And then actually Anna found two genomes by a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, who gave them two genomes of the NIDA's varieties, and then that was published in 2021. But it took me a while to do that analysis, because what I did was that for that paper, I kind of took all of the analysis that I have done before. So I worked with the cannabinoid genes. I worked with the cannabinoid genes because Reggie made me work with the cannabinoid genes. I started working in cannabis because I was very interested in the sex differences, right? Why do you have males? Why do you have females? Why do you have hermaphrodites? I was interested in that. And I was in my PhD, I work with why do individuals reproduce sexually, which is actually one of the biggest questions that Darwin himself asked. Like, why do females not only clone themselves? Why do they incur in finding a mate? And I can talk about, I did a whole dissertation on that. But I started working on cannabis because of that. And then Reggie was like, hey, like people want to know about the cannabinoids. So I started working on the cannabinoid genes thanks to Reggie. And I love the cannabinoid genes. I think it's a super cool story. And then in that paper with the NIDA paper where we describe the genome, I took all of the different analyses that I had done before. So we looked at the chloroplast, we looked at the mitochondria, we looked at the repetitive content of the genome, where I have a paper in 2018 looking at the repetitive content. So I did that. So I did all of the different analyses that I had done before, explaining why does the federal government's weed is not as varied and does not represent what people consume. And that was published in 2021. And overall, that kind of has been my work so far. And now in New York State, I am still figuring out how to apply that work. Really, in extension, it's very outreach and education, but people need results and people need some sort of research. But now I'm trying to figure out how to apply it into sustainability, including profits, right? How is your company sustainable? What nutrients do you need? How you need to figure out, when you're running a company, you need to figure out exactly where every single penny is going. So, you know, this bud, how much does it cost? How much did it cost in water production, in personnel, in nutrients, in lights, in, right? And because New York State, which is coming kind of later in the game regarding marijuana legalization, they are regulating people have to grow outdoors. So, you know,
because of the footprint, because of the energy that's the energy demand on indoor growth, or what? Why?
I honestly don't know exactly the reason why, but it's one of the reasons is that it's because they want it to be environmentally sustainable.
Wow.
But New York State, so again, New York City, I had never been in New York State before. I had been in New York City, but I had never been in upstate New York before living here. And New York State is a very agricultural state, right? Like you cross the Hudson Valley. And yes, you have some big cities. You have, for example, you have Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, Buffalo, right? But it's a very agricultural state. So New York State has a very big generations of being agricultural. So I think that they also think, and I think it's right, that they can grow cannabis outdoor, marijuana. I mean, and hemp, of course, because, you know, hemp is grown outdoors anyway. Hemp is a field crop when you do it for fiber or for grain. So yeah.
Okay, so we were just talking a little bit ago about the I don't know how many are on here from New York or interested, but we kind of got into a discussion earlier about, you know, where market is in New York and what's happening with legalization. I'm curious about that, if you wouldn't mind talking about that. And then also, where does outdoor growth of marijuana impact or really overlap, you know, because we're seeing this conflict, say in Colorado, where about growing industrial hemp outdoors and pollination for the cannabis. Can you, I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out or what your feedback is around that.
So legalization in New York, it's been a ride. Because New York State, because they're coming later into the game. So, okay, in Colorado, right? I moved to Colorado in 2013 when everything was legalizing. And in Colorado, they legalized marijuana. And then the farm bill became a thing in 2014, right? So Colorado already had started growing marijuana, and then hemp became a thing. Here in New York State, it's the other way around. Hemp has been a thing, and then marijuana is coming, right? So people have been growing hemp for CBD, which is actually not hemp, it's just low THC marijuana. The government wants to call it hemp because the government wants to euphemize everything. I don't know if I just made a word, but it is not hemp, right? It's low THC marijuana. Hemp is that for fiber and for grain, right? And they are biological clusters in the cannabis sativa species. There are biological clusters, and hemp for fiber and grain are more closely related than that marijuana for CBD or CBG or THC, right? So here people have, in order for you to be able to get a license to grow marijuana, you have to have grown hemp for CBD for the past 2 years. So not everyone can grow marijuana. And they gave these conditional licenses to people that are minorities. So women, LGBTQ, distressed farmers, and veterans. So those are the ones that are getting the licenses to grow. Now, the people, New York State is not allowing vertical integration. So you can have a processing and a production license, 2 different licenses. You can have production and processing, but you cannot have a retail.
Oh,
So yeah, and the retail licenses have not yet been given out. So
which
for
is
the-
where you're seeing some concerns, I guess, in where markets that are existing or companies that are existing in other markets are coming in even prior to the development of the licensing for retail in New York.
Yes, and New York State has not allowed these companies from other states to come in to get licenses. So they are here already for the medical license. The medical license were given out, I think that was 2018 or 2020 when the medical license were given out in New York State. I honestly don't remember. So there are 10 medical licenses. There are 10 companies that have medical licenses. Some of them are MSOs, right? However, these out-of-state operators cannot apply for a license. So what they're doing is that they are trying to get a hold of people that have licenses so that they can somehow join forces, unite, venture, whatever, but they cannot themselves apply for the licenses.
And that's a good, bad, what's some concern? Talk to me about, like, what's some of the uproar for residents and farmers and.
So, okay. So the farmers here have been farmers for generations, right? And they have cattle is big here. Like the dairy industry in New York State is the biggest industry, agricultural industry. So these are people that have been having agricultural land for forever. However, these guys are not going to apply to a license. So if you have them fill out a paperwork for them to grow, I don't know, cucumbers, they are not going to grow the cucumbers, period, right? They're going to grow tomatoes instead because they're not going to fill that paper out. So the people that have been growing hemp, even for fiber, which are very few, or for grain, which are very few, those people are usually people that are new in a way, that are young, that say, yeah, I want to do this. And maybe they do have family farms, but these are people that are newer, right? Now, the people that are in marijuana, many of them are people that are coming from other states that have legalized. So people that are original New Yorkers that lived in Colorado or lived in California or lived in Arizona and then moved back and said, I want to start an operation in my hometown, right? And so you see that a lot, but they're also newer, and yeah, many of them coming from a know-how on how to grow indoors, how to use nutrients indoors. And now the regulations were like, well, now you have to grow outdoors, right? And the Office of Cannabis Management, the OCM, which are the ones that are putting out the laws and the regulations, they are new also to the game. And many of them do not know how to operate. And so these guys are just putting laws and regulations that sometimes do not make sense, or it's like, wait, I made a mistake. Yeah. Let's do that again, right? So they're changing the game, and people are kind of like, okay, so what do I do? Or now do I need to take out plants? So people are like, okay, I have too many plants now, I have to sell. So this summer was very hectic to everyone.
Okay, it looks like there's a question here from Emmanuel. I'm assuming this is around CBD or cannabinoid production, hemp versus fiber. But is NYC, is New York City going to allow import hemp from inside the US or outside the US? And can you sell hemp products inside the rec market?
So hemp products, so yeah, so I'm assuming that these are for high cannabinoid hemp, right? So for CBD or, So I don't think so, no. So I think that New York City is going to require first the product from New York. And however, right, there you go to New York City and you smell and everything smells like marijuana. So there are products coming, word on the street is that it's coming from Oklahoma. I honestly don't know, but yes, there is a lot of product coming from everywhere, and there are sticker shops, right? In Rochester, there's a bunch, and Buffalo, there's huge sticker shops, and you go into those sticker shops and you buy a $100, $150 sticker that comes with a marijuana gift. Yeah, or t-shirt, right? So yeah, so that's what people are doing in New York City as well. And in New York City, there's vans, right? There's these little buses. So, but legally right now, no, I think that you have to get the product from New York State.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to talk about, some of the markets and what you're seeing, and really the push, the availability of grain production, especially into the cattle industry. Can we talk real quick, or are you familiar with any research being done in New York around the grain market or for animal feed?
So grain for animal feed is illegal, right?
For now, yeah. Research being done at Cornell? Do you know?
I mean, at Cornell, yes, Cornell is developing varieties for grain and for fiber. Yeah, sure. But whether we're pushing that for, I think so. I think that people are pushing that. I mean, grain is okay for human consumption, but it's not okay for your animals to eat the grain. That's kind of doesn't make sense. So yeah, they're pushing for that. There are, I mean, farmers have all of the equipment needed to harvest and seeders and right, and much of the equipment that you need to harvest, for example, wheat, you can also use for grain. However, I mean, yes, unless if you're pushing things to be, you can use the same equipment, right? However, and there are processing facilities that process different types of seeds, for example, for example, seeds for pumpkins or stuff. They are so there is the possibility of having grain processing here, which is what I'm trying to push here, people to grow grain, because it is easier to process than fiber and less expensive to process than fiber.
It's capital intensive. I think it depends, right? There's definitely challenges to food grade processing and quality compared to some of the, say, animal feed or biofuels or any of the other. But I second what you say. The cost to get into harvesting or producing a grain product is less capital intensive.
Yeah. And especially if you already have the equipment, like if you have already, I don't know, the tiller, the harvester, the combine, whatever, it's less capital intensive. Now, and yes, there are companies that already have, destoners and dehullers and all of these equipment that you need to clean and to process the seeds. So it is easier than fiber. And right now, whenever people ask me, I mean, should I go into high CBD cannabis? I say no. I mean, we know that high CBD, like CBD tanked, right? That I don't think that that's a good idea right now. And then I don't think that marijuana is a good idea either. And if you have not been growing high CBD cannabis for the past 2 years, you cannot go there anyway. So when people ask me, I tell them, do not go into marijuana right now. Maybe later, maybe let's see what happens when the dispensaries open, because there's no retail locations right now. So
yeah. Well, and that's kind of my concern with grain right now, right? Without opening markets in animal feed, and we can grow it all we want, but if we don't have somewhere for it to go, the animal feed market really does drive a lot of this. Also, we have to remember, right, that with the production of grain, we have herd and fiber as byproduct. May not be textile grade, right, into the high-end textiles, but we absolutely have material that then becomes this byproduct to be processed. And so, yeah, I'm interested, especially in the grain market in your area. Can you
But
talk?
but I do think that also that happens with marijuana, right? You have this leftover that could be used for animal bedding in a way, or could be used, the herd from marijuana stocks could be further used somehow. I think that the problem right now, and that's a question actually for you, Mandy, what sort of equipment do you need in order to process these huge stocks, right? Because if you put it in a normal, if you put it in a hammer mill, okay, fine, yeah, you chop it into little pieces and that may be able to work. But you cannot process these huge stocks otherwise, right? Like what other, a decorticator, it doesn't work.
Well, it depends, right? I've seen some in California. There's a facility that's been converted from a cotton gin that is processing, and I'm no joke, their stocks were this big from a 20-foot crop. And so I think that it depends, but I think really what we spoke about in the beginning is, what is that end material? Right? What are we going after, and then breaking it backwards to that equipment? If we're sending it through, say, a hammer mill, chopping it up and then sending it into micronized for a fiber, right? Then you probably could. If I'm looking for a textile grade fiber on a smaller facility, that's significantly different. And so I think that, yeah, it really is a matter of where is that byproduct then going to go? What does that market look like? Can you talk to me a little bit, are you doing work, or, who on the team, I guess, or where could the people that are listening now find some research that's being done either through Cornell or in your region for fiber and grain genetics?
So Cornell is doing fiber and grain genetics.
Yeah.
But not, I mean, I guess that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not.
But that's the university. Isn't Larry
Yeah.
smart? And
Yeah.
Dr. Grab, I know that there's a couple people that have gotten onto my calendar.
Heather is a lecturer, so it's.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Larry.
Yeah. That's it. But I think that you and the Global Hemp Association are doing bigger stuff, with your field trials that right now Cornell, although there is this consortium, I don't remember the name of this consortium of these multiple universities.
Far?
That are going to be
research. It's a research organization that's come together to bring projects forward that the industry needs. I believe International Hemp is part of them. I saw Eric's on here. And then I know Cornell and NC State and a couple of others, IND Hemp, are coming together. So basically industry is bringing forward projects that are needed, and then with the potential to, get both like public-private partnership and research and moving the data forward. So I think that I said that right. If Eric, I don't know if you, or I saw Bill's on here also, if either of you know different, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, but
cool.
Yeah, and then, okay, so this, Paul said, emerging crops you have worked with. I have not worked with other emerging crops. I worked with a cannabis and then a little bit with hops. I mean, the work that I've done with hops is really the work that I've done in genomics with hops. Like I assembled also the chloroplast for hops. And I know, and I've looked at the cannabinoid related genes in hops, but I have not really worked with another emerging crop. And then, so the seed bank, so Natasha, the seed bank is actually from the USDA. We share campus with the USDA in Geneva. So the seed bank is in the USDA, and I recommend to reach out to Zach Stansell, who's a great guy. So Zach Stansell. And he, we want to use grain fiber. We have a genetic one to support. So any thoughts? My thoughts are take as much variation from multiple grain, like multiple hemp lines, and plant them in Ghana, Burundi, and Tanzania, There are multiple companies, European companies, and I know that Mandy knows more than I do on where to exactly get these seeds, and I don't know what would be the legality to grow them there. I mean, I'm guessing that all of these countries have different regulations in order for you to be able to grow these plants there, but I think that that's my recommendation. Start with as much variation as possible to see which is the best variety for that particular climate. And if you have 3 different countries, chances are that there's going to be different varieties that perform differently in the different conditions. So that's why I think that, yeah, starting with different varieties to see which one performs the best in location, and then you start with a breeding project, right? Then you start breeding for that. Yeah.
Can you share something? You had said something earlier, and I kind of want to go back to it about the genetic differences in hemp versus marijuana, and how those, those differences are, I don't know what word you use specifically, but can you speak a little bit? Because of course, what I hear is cannabis is all the same, and it's all, hemp is hemp and cannabis is cannabis, or marijuana is marijuana. Can you guys kind of give me or us an overview as I speak to people about those clear differences? What are you seeing in,
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, please do. Is this the presentation you gave and I just happened to touch on it?
I mean, this is I always use this graph because it's, it's so this is a relationship between different cannabis varieties, including hemp and marijuana, right? So this is about 300 different varieties. This is called a split tree graph. And this split tree graph just gives you, relationship between individuals. Each of these black lines is a different strain. The closer you are in the graph, the more of the genome you share. So this is the genome, right? So if my son and myself were in this graph, we would be very close together. Let me make this big. We would be very close together because we share a lot of our genome, right? This part in the middle, like this spider web thread-like structure in the middle, is a part of the genome that everyone shares. So depending on how you divide this graph, you can get something like this, where you have different groupings, which we called broadleaf marijuana type, narrowleaf marijuana type, and hemp. So this hemp over here is the hemp used for grain and for fiber, right? But you can see, depending on how you divide this graph, so all of these guys over here are kind of like grain and fiber hemp, and these guys are medical and rec, and these guys are also medical and rec. So there are different groupings within cannabis, but these different lineages, we call them lineages, these different lineages are used for different purposes. So these guys over here are more closely related to each other than they are to these guys in purple, right? So that is that is what I was referring to when I was talking about that.
Awesome. So not necessarily characteristics. I'd love to dive into this more sometime. Again, I don't know what I don't know. So I encourage you guys, if you have questions, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to ask. There is a question that James just brought up. What about pollen drift in grain crops?
So pollen drift between marijuana and hemp. So what's going to happen? That is a big problem, I think, because if hemp really picks up here or anywhere in the US and there are outdoor marijuana grows, you can get pollinated. So in my opinion, my own personal opinion, I think that one of the things that we could do is genetically modify marijuana so that it doesn't accept pollen and it doesn't get pollinated. At the end of the day, you do not need seeds in marijuana, right? You want seeds for grain. You do not want seeds for marijuana. So if you make them all sterile somehow, and there are companies that are trying to do that right now with these polyploid individuals, if you make them all sterile and they do not produce seeds, then you're assuring that if there's pollen around, they're not going to be pollinated. That is my opinion, right? In order for you to make sure that the marijuana plants are not gonna be pollinated.
Okay, are there any questions? I want to give you guys a chance. Feel free to jump in, like raise your hand, chime in. Josh, do you have anything? I saw your camera came on. How are you doing? You want to, feel free to, yeah, I mean, go ahead, sir.
I'm great. Thanks. Milan just shot me a text. She's like, I've already registered. You get on this call.
That's awesome.
I was on hold with USDA trying to get some answers about a CITES permit. But Daniela was talking about something near and dear to my heart, ploidy elevation for sterility induction. Having worked on plant breeding, ornamental plant breeding programs for 20 years, it's such a standard way of fixing a really straightforward issue, because in ornamental flowering plants, induced sterility means you get more flowers. And so ploidy elevation is such a great way to do that. And for like 5 years, I've been pushing people and they're always like, sounds like GMO to me. And so I'm like, that's not a debate. That's not a rebuttal. But I think technology, and I only just came in at the last second, but technology is definitely going to help us solve some of these problems. So I'm excited to be here and learn and listen.
I agree. I mean, the thing is that the polyploid plants right now have not been really tested in a good methodological experimental design control, trial. But I totally agree that is a way where we can solve these problems. And if, cannabinoid terpene production is not affected with polyploidy, and maybe even augmented, like you have huge strawberries thanks to polyploidy.
Corn.
So, and then you can see, for example, starch going up when you have polyploids in certain plants. So yes. I think that could be a possibility. So I completely agree. I'm happy that there's synergy.
There's so much opportunity. Go ahead. Sorry, man.
I was gonna say, I know you're speaking English, but I can't understand. So I appreciate that you guys chime in, because you're getting, so thank you.
So, okay, so what is polyploidy? So we are diploid organisms, and cannabis is too, right? So diploid organisms, they have diploid is 2. So it has one set of chromosomes coming from mom and one set of chromosomes coming from dad, right? So that's why we're diploid. However, when you have polyploid organisms, you have multiple sets of chromosomes. So you can have triploids that have 3 sets of chromosomes, or you can have quadriploids which have 4 sets of chromosomes. But when you have an odd set of chromosomes, like a triploid, for example, then it's likely that you cannot have eggs or sperm forming because they are odd, right? How can you divide 3 into, right? You cannot do that. So many of these individuals, many of these polyploids are sterile, and maybe they do not produce seeds, or they do not produce viable pollen. Yeah. So then that way you're assuring that there's not going to be pollination, and especially, I mean, you want pollination in grain. You want grain to be pollinated. You want to have seeds, right? But when you have marijuana or high CBD cannabis or high CBG or terpinolene, whatever these compounds are, you're just looking for the flower, and that flower does not need to be pollinated. So that flower could be a polyploid or some sort of other modified organism that is not gonna be pollinated, and you're not gonna have pollen floating around be a problem for that one individual, right? So that is what I think could be helpful in the cannabis industry. I think it has been helpful in other industries, and that's why I say this. However, I mean, you never know what's going to happen, right? So,
and plants are really interesting. So I think it was the late 90s, I collected this Nemesia stromosa species in South Africa. And my idea was to hybridize it with Nemesia fruticosa, which is an ornamental plant that's like a little purple bush, but these were like jewel colored and crazy. And I was like, oh, I wonder if we could cross these. Well, they weren't compatible. And so what we had to do was we had to raise the ploidy levels so that they could be compatible. We finally got them to cross. It created this whole like Pandora's box of colors and totally different plant forms. And it was really an amazing thing. The sterility meant that the plants just flowered their heads off, and they actually flowered themselves to death. But after a period of years, fertile seeds began to show up. And so life finds a way. And so I got to Googling, of course, and what I found out is basically it's a way of inducing mule. You're creating mules.
Mules. Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is only about 89 to 92% of mules are sterile. And so sometimes our best laid plans don't work out. And that's where I think, like I've got a project with fiber hemp. We're using the UMA and the Jinma strains. And I'm doing ploidy elevation on those because creating tetraploids is often another way that's easy to increase leaf size, internode elongation, flower size. And so, I mean, a bunch of plants like Pseudora cordata, the little Bacopa white plant that's sold at every garden center. That actually was a weed from South Africa that accidentally got imported to Germany. And we created a tetraploid of it, A, so it was patentable. But B, because it made the whole plant bigger, and so you got way bigger flowers. And so with this UMA, I'm doing a project for someone that needs large leaves. And so my thesis is that ploidy elevation will actually increase the size of the leaves. Typically, in my experience, using this process on maybe, 200 genera and literally 5,000 or 6,000 different varieties, it almost always results in larger leaves, larger everything. And so typically what we would do is create a tetraploid and then back cross that back to the diploid. And then the resulting seedlings are the mules that just flower their full heads off. And so therefore that's what you want with flowering plants. More flowers. We always joke in ornamental horticulture that every new plant is more free flowering and more compact. And so it's a really interesting process that, yes, oftentimes I haven't worked in double haploids, but it's on my list. And I'm not a scientist, I'm just a nerd. And so I got involved in this kind of weirdly, and I was always asking, well, what happens if you? And so I think that's what's so exciting is that cannabis is the most amazing plant. I mean, I learn things about it every day. And I think we have only come to the end of the beginning of our knowledge of this plant. And so I am always trying to encourage researchers to keep trying and don't be afraid of failure.
Okay. Daniela.
No, I agree. I think that you and I should connect. I don't know if we're in LinkedIn, but I think that you and I, where are you at?
I'm in San Diego.
I think I found you on LinkedIn.
This is a powerful thing. So this is exactly. In fact, Josh, I listened to you the other day on Milan when you guys were talking on the Clubhouse. And so when do you guys go live for anybody that's listening? Because you guys bring quite a few guests on, and I saw Milan is on also, but
yeah, Wednesday morning at 8 Western. We try to be done by 9 so that we're not stepping on your event. But often we get to going late. We've had this last few weeks, we've had some just amazing guests. So it's been really exciting.
Awesome. So another resource, another great place to log on. Clubhouse has been great. Clubhouse is cool also because it records. So you can go back and re-listen later if you're missing it. And then also just a reminder, all of our meetings and videos, podcasts are recorded and shared through all the podcast channels. So you can find it on Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, but also on our YouTube channel. There's about 350 plus interviews. And so I encourage you guys to get on. You can search with different topics and things like that under different topics. But Daniela, anything else you want to lean in on conversation or bring up maybe? I saw that there were a couple of questions. Paul had one. Any work in double haploids?
Double haploids. People are interested in doing double haploids. So double haploids is when you take, for example, the chromosomes that are in the egg or in the sperm, right? So those chromosomes that are in the egg or in the sperm, they're half, right? When they come together, they're two, right, diploids, but when they're each of them separately, they're haploids. So you take those chromosomes and you copy them. So now you have a diploid, right? But that each chromosome is exactly the same. So each region of the genome is exactly the same as the other one, right? So then you're assuring that there is no something that we call heterozygosity, which is when, you know, the gene coming from mom is different from the gene coming from dad. So you're assuring that the genes are the same because they are coming from the same egg or the same sperm. So I don't know if there's work right now in double haploids. I think that would be awesome. I think that it would be awesome to sequence double haploids and to assemble the genome, because that would help so much. I know that when I was in Front Range, they wanted to pursue that, but I don't know if they're doing that right now. I left Front Range Biosciences a year and plus ago, almost, no, 2 years ago, no, a year and plus ago. So I don't know if they are doing it or not, but I'm sure that there's people working on it. And then polyploids by chance or not, genome polyploids undergo negative selection. Yep, that is probably true. Yep, and then that's probably what happened with Josh's plants, that then they started developing seeds. Does this mean calling plant species male or females in tech is incorrect? I do not understand that question, Milan. I don't think so. I don't understand, but and I agree. I don't. Great.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions? I want to real quick bring up Natasha and Josh. You guys should probably connect. Natasha is working on a great project in Africa, in Ghana, and has a lot going. She actually just got back. And so I also know that the market over there is really developing. Yeah, I encourage you to connect. Josh, you froze for a second. Can you hear me? Did you hear to maybe connect with Natasha?
I did not.
Okay,
Sorry.
Natasha, that's okay. I saw your head frozen, so I knew you weren't there. You quit moving around. But Natasha's got a project that she's working on in Africa. And so I was just typing, you guys should maybe connect, but just wanted to give that shout out that, you know, she's working pretty hard at it and just got back from over there and may help with your project specifically. But yeah, for sure.
Hey there. Hey, Josh.
Anything else that you're working on right now, Daniela? Any other research that's come up, or really, you know, interesting topics that are maybe not being discussed, that maybe we should be really talking about or looking at, especially moving into fiber and grain? So,
I mean, research per se, I still have projects ongoing at CU Boulder. I left a grant at CU Boulder that I am. Oh, Josh, I'm gonna also copy your email, and I'm gonna email you. So I left some grants there, working actually on sex, on the sex chromosomes. So I'm working with my old my old advisor, Nolan Kane, and his graduate student on sex chromosome stuff. Here I am trying to figure out how to help the industry with question-driven questions. I don't know, you know, but actually figuring out, okay, why are you using those nutrients? Did you do a soil test? What did the soil test produce? Right. And then how much are you selling it for? How many plants did you grow? Because people do not know how to have these kind of evidence-based questions drive their businesses, right? And at the end of the day, if you think about yield or if you think about profits, that could be answered through how much money am I spending on nutrients, on lights, on personnel, right? And it is an equation at the end of the day. So I think that we need to figure out how to do that. And other than that, I mean, I am trying to push the grain part forward. I have written some grants. Let's see whether they get funded regarding grain production, regarding, you know, getting the grain stuff moving here in New York State, given that we already have, again, the equipment, and the way to process the grain. And there are farmers that are interested. So I have a little group of farmers here in upstate New York that are interested in starting 5 grain trials in 2023. And if we get the grants, what would happen is that they do not have to pay for the seeds or for, yeah, exactly, for, but and then with AGF, the non-for-profit, what we're trying to do, I mean, we have this course, we're trying to figure out how to grow the nonprofit, how to make it profitable, and how to make it, I mean, at the end of the day, the goal of the nonprofit was to make genomic tools available for a broad public, right? So if you have these genomic tools belonging to a nonprofit, then big corporations, whether it's big tobacco or big pharma or whoever, cannot buy that IP because it belongs to a non-for-profit. So that's something that we're trying to figure out how to do.
I like that. Any other questions? Anything else you guys like to ask? I would love to dive into some research. Where do people find your papers you've written, some of the work that you've already done?
So I'm gonna leave here I am on LinkedIn. So if you guys want to see papers, you can always message me, or you can always I am also gonna leave my Twitter handle, and I don't know if Twitter is gonna live, but if not, my Instagram is the same one, Kana Wakana. Instagram and Twitter, and that's my LinkedIn. And then you can contact me, and then if you want any papers, I can give you my papers. Yes, and then I hope to have something published early 2023 regarding these cannabinoid genes. We're looking at the entire pathway with one of my collaborators. And then, yeah, like I've been doing things on the side while trying to figure out how to get the industry in New York State thriving, which is my job at Cornell.
You have quite a bit up on Google Scholar. I just want to give a shout out. There's a lot of information available on Google Scholar, and we kind of forget it. And so I want to, really redirect that when we're looking at data and research that's available, Google Scholar is a powerful tool and tends to be pretty reliable, especially compared to Facebook and Twitter.
It's good that you know about Google Scholar, Mandy. It's great. So I'm gonna give my Google Scholar profile. Here's my Google Scholar profile.
Thank you.
Don't you have oh yes, I also have my website. No, thank you.
While you're doing that, Natasha, do you have a question? I saw your hand is up.
I did. Hi there, Daniela. I had a question on what research has been done as any fiber or grain as an intercrop, and specifically on any other crops that it's like intercropped with. Has it been seen to improve any pest or disease issues with those crops it's grown with?
Intercrop, you mean
Rotation.
cover cropping or rotation?
More cover cropping. I would say, for example, we work with a lot of coffee farmers, and the National Coffee and Cocoa Research is one of the organizations, the government organizations I met with while I was in Uganda, and they're very interested in seeing it used as an intercrop, maybe for pest and disease mitigation, and then obviously soil improvement.
I don't think that there's a lot of research done. If there is research done on that, I have not seen it, but I'm interested in that with these grain fibers, figuring out what cover crops, what other rotation, right? How can you rotate it? Because they always tell me, there's this guy that has never, I don't think that he has a plant in his living room, and he's like, I have 62 acres. And I'm like, okay, we're going to start with one. And then figuring out, okay, this one, what other crop can we have? At what timing? Winter crop, should we then grow it in this 1 acre, and then next year we grow something else, and then we rotate it. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But if you have any suggestions or ideas, that would be totally welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that I'll have to double check, but one of our contacts had said that they have intercropped it with coffee in Costa Rica. And I was going to be connecting the Uganda ministry with those contacts as well. And then one other interesting discussion that I had while there was with the Malaria Consortium, and given the issues with high malaria populations in Uganda, using it as a crop that can be planted to reduce mosquitoes, but more so the nutrients that can be consumed to boost the immune system. Today, they are unfortunately giving them a type of chemo pill in peak season for malaria there, and that is causing birth defects and death. And so they are very interested in doing some research on how it could be one value addition to reducing some of the risk of malaria there.
Interesting.
Oh, Natasha, every time you tell me about this stuff, I peak of like, there's
Interesting.
so much good going on. And I'm just going to say real quick, thank you for all of the work all of you are doing. None of us can do it alone. We've got to be able to come together. I'm again going to put out, please use this time to collaborate, reach out to Natasha if you're working in Africa, or if you have any of the questions, or Josh or Paul. I saw anyone on here. This really is about collaboration. And so I want to just put that shout out there that we've got to come together and address some of these. One thing that I do want to do, and this is my ask, GHA is really looking to promote the industry and change what the perception of cannabis is, or what hemp is, right? That hemp is sustainability and housing and food and all of these things also. But of course, in order to do that, capital has to be needed, or has to be there. But also, we've got to be able to get data to back the campaign. And so gathering existing data that is available. So whether it's through intern students, or if you guys have projects, we'd love to start putting that bank of data together so that we can back the campaign with facts and get away from these overpromises and false truths. And so I am just going to put that out there. If you guys have a way that GHA can collaborate in getting that done, we'd love to. Or if you have an idea of how to do that, or students that would be able to assist in that, it would be really powerful behind that marketing campaign of what hemp is, or hemp for these other things. And so that's my ask, that GHA is looking for assistance at really pulling that database together. Daniela, anything else? And anybody else have any questions? Milan, I don't know what Noted Info is. Is that a platform?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Mandy.
You're okay.
I'll connect you with my friend Nydia, who's starting. That's basically all she's been trying to focus on, is just collecting data.
Cool.
So
Cool. Yeah. Seeing that this is just it. If we can collaborate, that would be fabulous. So thank you very, very much. Okay. Well, anything else before we hang up? Okay. Tell me how you pronounce your last name again, so I don't say something inappropriate.
Vergara.
Vergara. Okay, see, I've been saying it wrong this whole time, and now I'm embarrassed to even say it. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on. Like I said, if you guys are looking for any of the work that she's done, get on Google Scholar and reach out to Dr. Vergara.
Yeah.
Is that right? Close enough? Better?
Yeah.
Okay, I sure appreciate you. Anybody else also, I've sent a couple of messages out. For those of you that I don't know, I would love to get to know you. Please follow me on LinkedIn, send me a note. I'd love to get you on my calendar. And also, if I have not had you as a guest speaker, I'd love to collaborate or talk about that. You can go to our website and actually fill out an application, and I can just plug you into events as speakers, just like this one, or we do a one-on-one interview. We're really going to start hitting those again, busy at the first of the year, but through this year so far, we've gotten to see a lot of facilities, farms, and then over the holiday season, we'll slow down a little bit as far as just interviews. But I would love to collaborate and get you guys on board to help make connections for you as well. So please reach out. other than that, we'll see you all later. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate you. Talk later. Thanks, Anna, for saying hello as well. See you guys.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Mandy. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.